the factories are working again, and we're getting a bunch of trades here. But at the end of them, I think White does not have what he thought he would have when he played e6. So let's rewind 6 moves ago, right? e6 was played. fe6, rook fe1, everything is hunky-dory. But knight d5 was a clutch move because it opened up this bishop. And knight g6, okay, this bad move by Kramnik, just helping the bishop get to a good square and helping the other bishop get to a good square. And then the bishop slides in, forcing some trades. And now Hikaru's thinking he can take on f5, he can take on b2, but I think the worst is behind him. Likeliest outcome is probably a draw. Probably. Very interesting position.
White does have this threat on c6. I'm just trying to calculate the trades that you're pointing out. Now, the one trade I definitely don't want to do is bishop takes knight, the central line, and allow the white bishop to jump into e5. So it's got to be a choice between bishop takes bishop and pawn takes knight right now. Bishop takes bishop. There is still some tactics to be calculated. Rook takes knight probably does not work, even though I'm eyeing that e7 square as a threat. But so much hanging. Maybe just knight takes c6. Bishop takes bishop is knight takes c6 a possibility there, Daniel?
Oh, gosh, this just good. I mean, it's pretty rare you have a situation where you have you can capture any of White's 3 remaining minor pieces, and all 3 moves are actually on the table. Like, you're seriously considering all of them, and he makes the least likely one.
Oh, my goodness. This is the one that I said that I wouldn't want to play.
The reason this is inaccurate is apparently not, okay, Kramnik makes the natural move. Look, what is these Armageddon, not wrong word, desperado sacrifices. Total minor piece Armageddon, I should say, with only 2 remaining now. It's a bishop versus knight. What is happening here?
But Vlad's got the better pawn formation for sure. And there's this e6 weakness that you can target. The h6 pawn also potentially weak. The knight on d5 looks pretty, but it can be destabilized with the c4 at the right time. The right time apparently was now.
Chess commentary is the only forum where you can just say the word Armageddon and everybody just thinks you're normal. People understand what that means. Rook d7. Suddenly Kramnik back in the driver's seat. Tanya, you were right. The decision to take on e5 was
Bishop
the
e5
riskiest
coming in.
And the least rewarding of the 3.
He's trying to target the f2, g2 pawns. This is where the counterplay lies. The knight on b4 is completely offside from the action on the king side. White needs one move, bishop to e5, and you start creating some big threats with the coordination between the bishop and the rook. So he goes back quickly trying to get that knight to c5, but can you go bishop e5 anyway?
Now here's the thing, and this is irrelevant right now, but it is relevant. If Hikaru loses, he has to rely on his tie breaks because it is very likely that not everybody who has 6.5 out of 9 will make the top 11. Just looking at the standings, there's a huge group with 5.5. Some of them might have better tie breaks than Hikaru. And look at Kramnik. He brings his bishop to e5. The knight is now tied down, far removed from its former glory on d5. It used to be, the driving force behind Black's position. Now it's consigned to the periphery. And now it's White's bishop with its moment in the sun. And Black is still up a pawn.
I'm so surprised. And it all comes down to that moment when Hikaru decided to give up his dark squared bishop for that knight on the center of the board, giving so much activity. Yes, Black has an extra pawn, but that 4 versus 3 on the queen side, does it really count for an extra pawn? It's White that's coming in with all the pressure. Bishop to e5 played. I'm not liking Black's position, but I'm looking at what's next. How does Kramnik build the pressure further? Does he go rook to h7, also tying the g6 rook to the h6 pawn?
Wow. This is a pretty amazing turnaround here. Hikaru potentially on the ropes. And I should say Nepo and Fedoseev have drawn. So Fedoseev with a good shot. It all depends on the tiebreak. So the people with 7 out of 9, they'll qualify. 6.5, they'll qualify with good to decent tiebreaks. Erigaisi is choking his final game as well on board 4. I just want to very quickly point this game out because Erigaisi was better out of the opening. He made a huge blunder. And now Antipov is just a couple accurate moves away from moving to 7 out of 9 and qualifying to Division 1 if he can drive this point home.
Massive. fighting for that Division 1, getting into Division 1 placement. And this is such a big moment because do the math, he's up a pawn, but look at the piece activity that black has right now. White's rook still on a1, the bishop still on c1, not playing. Queen takes knight was a threat. He falls back with the knight. White has to keep the pressure on that knight. Tempo is everything, but how do you do that? Black's queen on g4, pinning the pawn on g2. Rook takes knight is an idea always to watch out. Queen d2?
Yeah, maybe that's. But knight f4,
move.
Knight f4, and that attack has to be overwhelming. Yeah, this looks over. Knight b3 is also a threat now.
It's black who's got the extra pawn and all the compensation for it.
That's staggering. Erigaisi will lose the last two. He had 5.5 out of 7. He'll finish 5.5 out of 9, and he'll be happy to make Division 2. I mean, what have we seen? What kind of craziness have we seen in this tournament? He's still kicking. He's still trying, but knight takes h3 and just go back to f4. You don't need to do anything special here if you're Antipov. It's just, ugh.
Yeah, that's two extra pawns now. I'm still trying to get my math right here. And a lot of play against the white king. This is looking really bad for Arjun. Daniel, should we move back to the Hikaru Vladimir endgame? It looked like Hikaru had a defensive task ahead of him. Has he managed to do it? Well, he does defend the e6 pawn. The knight on a6 controls the c7 square, but white's other rook, the rook from e3, can slide over from d3 to d7 and join the attack.
This is a huge finale here because a win by Kramnik, that shakes up the standings. Potentially, Kramnik makes Division 1. Hikaru might not. Hikaru holds a draw. Well, maybe the most satisfactory. Is Kramnik going to make the draw here? This is a very juicy moment. What do you think, Tanya?
I think Vlad plays on. He's got a few extra seconds on the clock.
You're right.
He does play on. Rook d3, rook d7 coming in.
Wow. And bishop takes c7 actually is a threat. You should... Okay, and Hikaru, very alert, very vigilant. Bishop c7 now not possible because the black rook will assist the knight on c8. And I think that Kramnik realizes he can repeat when he wants. So for now, he's got the draw in his pocket. But we saw what happened to Frederick Svane, right? You spend too long, Hikaru will smell blood, and then suddenly he'll turn the tables on you.
Give him one chance, and that's all he needs. How many times has Hikaru not only escaped, but turned the position completely around, bad positions into a win? Just today, but overall, every time you play him. So it's really never over. He's so resilient and so tricky. He's not making this easy. He does still have the extra pawn. That rook from g8 is eyeing the c8 square to defend the tender c7 spot. That's a repeat for the second. And that's it. The position.
They had reached this previously, I suppose. Yeah. It's a draw. And Hikaru's happy. He qualified.